The New York Times has recently reported that there was an individual working on Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign who was accused of sexual harassment by another female employee who was 30 years old at the time. And when Hillary Clinton was advised to fire this individual, she refused to do so. So the man in question is Burns Strider. And this all occurred.
He was like her faith-based initiative advisor? Right?
Yes, so I'll give you details on what he did, and that will enrage you even more because his role was, in my opinion, incredibly unnecessary. But Ms. Clinton's campaign, according to the New York Times, Ms. Clinton's campaign manager at the time recommended that she fire the advisor, but Ms. Clinton did not. Instead, Mr. Strider was docked several weeks of pay and ordered to undergo counseling, and the young woman was actually moved to a new job. So as far as his role, he was her faith advisor and sent the candidate scripture readings every morning for months during the campaign. I mean, maybe Hillary Clinton's faith is very important to her, but I would argue that if someone in your campaign has been accused of sexual harassment by another employee in your campaign, you should probably reconsider whether or not that person should be there. Like maybe fire that person, but she refused to do it. He was hired 5 years later at an independent group that supported Clinton's 2016 candidacy, Correct the Record, which was created by a close Clinton ally, David Brock. Nice. But he was later fired because of similar issues.
Okay, so a couple things here. So he's working on the 2008 campaign, and that's why 5 years later he gets hired by Correct the Record to work on the next campaign. This doesn't seem to be in any kind of dispute. They've got 4 sources, including it appears very high officials in the campaign. Saying, well, we wanted the guy fired. We tried to get Hillary to, and they're all women, whether it's Solis Doyle, who's the campaign manager, or Jess O'Connell, who was the national director of operations, and who originally fielded the complaint and concluded that Strider should be fired. So to Anna's point, look, let's say you're really religious. And by the way, to be fair, I had been pretty cynical about Hillary Clinton's religiosity, but maybe she is. Maybe she's, I was gonna say Bible thumper. I don't know. Look, I'm not a religious person. I have a bias against it. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't want it informing our leaders because I don't want them thinking that they're talking to God. But even if you are, let's say you love it. She's a devout Christian. Okay, well, we didn't know that. You can't pick up a Bible and read a verse?
No, but
you can't find some other pastor in the country?
I feel like if that person's sole role in your campaign is to be your faith advisor, and there are credible sexual harassment allegations against him, doesn't that now make him or his faith advisement null and void? Like, I wouldn't want to be faith advised by someone who's been sexually harassing a 30-year-old on my campaign.
And by the way, he was also married.
And look, if he's married and it turns out that he had an affair with someone on the campaign, like that's not. There's consent there, and I don't care, it's none of my business, but that's not what happened in this situation. So let me give you the details of the allegations against him. The complaint against Strider was made by a 30-year-old woman who shared an office with him. She told a campaign official that he had rubbed her shoulders inappropriately, kissed her on the forehead, and then he had been sending her a string of suggestive emails. And so through this investigation, she shared those emails to prove it, which is why Hillary Clinton was advised and urged to fire him, and she refused to do it. I just don't understand. And then, the 2016 campaign has the audacity to start judging women for not voting for Hillary Clinton if they're supportive of Bernie. Like,
I forgot about that.
So that kind of stuff, I mean, it just.
Special place in hell for women who don't fire sexual harassers?
If, people who support.
That's what Natalie Albright said. Oh, wait, it's like, no, she didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know, this was a different time. They did punish him. He got docked pay. He had to take sensitivity courses or undergo counseling, and they didn't demote her. They moved her to another job. So I mean, I think if it happened today, he'd get fired.
There's obviously cultural changes, and I think it's interesting that, just to be fair to them, or not fair, but there's a weird tension at the heart of the whole Clinton operation between this, powerful couple, and you're forwarding a woman who, regardless of I mean, it's no secret what I think of her politics, but she's obviously very formidable and wanted to take a shot at the top and was a big part of Bill Clinton's success. And then on the other hand, there was running a lot of interference that, like, even in the most benign scenario, there was weird stuff going on with Bill Clinton. There's all sorts of weird gender dynamics, and I think that this speaks to that. And I mean, look, if this was in a campaign, I would run with it and try to crucify her on it because I want to win. Now it's like, it's sad and it's embarrassing and it's fine to bring up her hypocrisy, but like, c'est la vie, Hillary Clinton. Just don't write another stupid book.
I just don't want to hear her talk about how she's this victim of sexism and all these terrible men who have done all these terrible things to her and said all these terrible things to her. And her campaign slogan was, "I'm with her, I'm with her." Well, were you with her when it came to a 30-year-old woman who worked on your 2008 campaign?
But Anna, it's literally with her.
I got it, but
like, there's narcissism to it, right?
I mean, I don't know. This feels like a stretch to me. Not that, again, that story shouldn't be covered, but I mean, they did believe her. It's just that they didn't take the firing action. They punished him in a different way and didn't fire. They didn't not.
So
believe
let me share.
She asked not to work with the guy.
Let's take Hillary out of it. Let's take Hillary out of it because for me, no, I have to jump in with this because I think that there's a blind spot because of gender issues here. And look, if I'm working at TYT, all right, let's put it in our context. I'm working at TYT, there's a male employee here who is sending me these emails, making me uncomfortable, harassing me. I go to my superiors, they urge Cenk to fire him, and Cenk says, I'm not gonna fire him, I'm just gonna have him work in a different position, but within the same company. I still have to deal with that person.
You work in a different position. That's actually even worse. That's what she did. That's actually a part I have a much bigger problem with personally. Not
and either way, they're working on the same campaign still, and it's.
Well, the campaign is huge. I'm with you. I agree. Your scenario is, but it's not. It's just not quite what happened here. That she asked not to have any more interaction with him, and she didn't. And it's a huge campaign. There's a zillion places to put people. They didn't. They should have fired him. But in 2008, they didn't do that.
There's a lot of places to spread racist rumors about Barack Obama.
Okay, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
But okay. So let me look again. As with almost everyone here, I don't have any love for Hillary Clinton, and I wish they hadn't chosen her as a candidate. I can go on forever. Having said that. Let's also acknowledge that Hillary Clinton is in a tough spot there, a unique spot in that she has the Bill Clinton baggage. And so with the Bill Clinton baggage, if she starts firing people who have done this, right? And then people turn around and go, well, what about your husband and what he did with Monica Lewinsky and who was a subordinate that worked under Bill Clinton, et cetera. Now, does that justify keeping out sexual harassers? No. But I'm giving you, and the other thing I want to be clear about is that Hillary Clinton cannot fight back here. She can't go public and say, oh yeah, but here's the things you didn't know, because that'll get her in a world of trouble and a mess on top of a mess.
She should have had him fired, and Bill Clinton should have done it himself.
I always assumed that when I read the story the first time, I just assumed that it was somebody she cared about. Like she was a friend, like it was a friend, and she didn't want to throw a friend.
Well, we might dismiss it, but I think
because it would never be
matters to her.
Because it would never be a news story then. Like it wasn't, this kind of thing wouldn't have gotten covered. They didn't have to bury it. It just, no one was going to go public with it. It's a different era. But Anna, your example is true, and it does suggest that there's a significant different interpretation. If somebody was sending you those things and you had in any way had to work with them, I mean, the guy should be fired no matter what. But if the circumstances were lesser and you still had to do, he would have to be fired.
And Cenk, just to respond to what you said, yeah, she's in a tough position, but it also cuts both ways. Meaning that after that whole Bill Clinton thing happened, what did Hillary do? What was her response? It was to put down the women who made the accusations against him. And so she didn't support the women in it. I mean, she didn't have to say anything, but she did say something, and it was to put those women down. And then you have this example from 2008. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. So yeah, she's in a tough spot. But I think the principal thing to do would be to protect the people who are working on your campaign by firing an individual who's doing something that is inappropriate.
Yeah, and by the way, just one more thing that's important. These are not just allegations, and they're not just from one person. This seems heavily backed up, including by the top advisors she had at the time.
Right.
So given that context, no matter what kind of a bad spot you thought she was in, and all the context we've given, it at a minimum appears to be enormously hypocritical.
And it goes.
If you become a member of the Young Turks, you'll be saying,
you know, I'm like a smart person.
So do it right now, tytnetwork.com/join. Get the whole Young Turks show every day.